How well do you really know Tennessee? Because across 42,000 square miles and more than 2 centuries of statehood, there's always another story waiting to be discovered. The growing Tennessee History Nerd catalog takes you from the Scopes monkey trial and the Battle of Athens to the Night Riders of Reelfoot Lake, the Sultana disaster, the failed state of Franklin, the Iron Men of Sewanee, and much more. And in the Driving Across Tennessee series, we travel county by county to uncover the people, places, communities, and stories that help shape the volunteer state. You'll also find full-length conversations with historians, authors, museum professionals, local experts, and the people working to preserve Tennessee's past. And new episodes and interviews are added every week. Follow the Tennessee History Nerd from your favorite podcast app, explore the catalog, and discover another Tennessee story you never knew you needed to hear. Now, let's get into the story. Hey there, this is Big John, and the interview you're about to hear was recorded on August 6th, 2026 at the Pavilion in the Beechgrove Confederate Cemetery in Beechgrove, Tennessee. My guest is Bill Wilson, better known across Middle Tennessee as Mr. Murfreesboro. For more than a decade, Bill has used that name to promote his hometown, preserve its stories, and carry on the legacy of Tommy Martin, the original Mr. Murfreesboro and a beloved ambassador of goodwill for the community. Before we recorded, Bill and I had lunch at Gregory's Beechgrove store, where it quickly becomes apparent that his reputation extends well beyond the Murfreesboro city limits. People recognized him as they came through the door, and once you hear this conversation, you'll understand why. We talk about everything from a pet mountain lion in a Murfreesboro apartment to Hoover's Gap and the first combat use of the Spencer repeating rifle. We discuss the Beechgrove Confederate Cemetery, Fort Nash, War Trace, Sheriff Childress Polk, Judy Garland's connection to the local community of Gum, General Douglas MacArthur's memorable visit to Murfreesboro, early Tennessee aviation, the changing MTSU campus, and the tension between rapid growth and historic preservation in Rutherford County. One note about the recording, the cemetery is only a few hundred yards from Interstate 24, so you'll hear a considerable amount of traffic in the background. But this is an on-location conversation about places and stories rooted in Middle Tennessee, and that nearby interstate is itself part of the tremendous growth and change that we discuss. So join us now from Beechgrove, Tennessee for this wide-ranging conversation with Mr. Murfreesboro, Bill Wilson. Okay, good day to you. Welcome to the Tennessee History Nerd that we are in the process right now. I'm interviewing Bill Wilson, Mr. Murfreesboro. Bill is, he's rather a fixture. We just had lunch at the Beechgrove store, the Gregory's Beechgrove General Store there in downtown Beechgrove. And, you know, people are walking in recognizing him. He is a fixture in Rutherford County. Of course, we're in Coffee County at this point, but just barely so. And Bill, welcome to the show.
Thank you, John.
It's good to have you on. And so wanted to talk a little bit. First of all, tell me about how the sobriquet, the nickname Mr. Murfreesboro came about.
Well, let's just say I'm not the OG, the original Mr. Murfreesboro. The original Mr. Murfreesboro was a gentleman by the name of Tommy Martin. And I think he died in the early 2000s. And he was an ambassador of goodwill. If you knew Tommy, he was the gentleman that was in the chamber. He was the president of the chamber, and he helped recruit businesses for Rutherford County, like State Farm, GE, Chromalox, and then he helped bring Nissan here. So people don't realize that the original Mr. Murfreesboro helped the growth of this area. But he was a man who was, by principle, he was the type of man, he was a salesman for Mutual of New York. And my grandfather, Bill Wilson, who was the sheriff of Rutherford County and the road superintendent in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, he and Tommy were good friends. So there's a connection there through family. And but every time you would see Tommy, he would say, if no one's told you they love you, Jesus loves you, and I love you as well. But if you had something grand that happened in your business or your child won a sporting event or something, he would actually cut it out of the newspaper, laminate it, and send it to you. He was known for sending birthday cards and announcements. He was just full of goodness. He was an ambassador of goodwill. So about 11 years ago, I decided I wanted to do something similar to that. I thought, maybe it could be this or maybe it could be that. Then I'm thinking, what about just Mr. Murfreesboro? And I know the family, his grandsons, Hunter McFarland and Dr. Bryn Martin, who's a history professor at MTSU, we all grew up together. So I took Hunter to lunch at B. McNeil's downtown Murfreesboro, and we're having lunch, and I was like, Hunter, I'm thinking about starting a new page called Mr. Murfreesboro. And in some way, it'll be an honor to your dad, but I'll just kind of pick up the moniker and be an ambassador of goodwill. I said, what do you think about that? Because I wasn't going to do it unless the family said it was okay. He goes, I think it'd be great. But that goes back to the relationship that my grandfather and Tommy had, and my dad and Tommy. We all were locals and want what's best for Murfreesboro. So that's where it started. And it was the end of March of 15. So I've been doing this for a little over 10 years, and I've gotten up to, if you count all social media, around 80,000 followers. And I write in the Murfreesboro Pulse. I've been doing that for 3 years. It's called the Mr. Murfreesboro Minute, where I tell stories about the past, then and now, or people.
Right.
Had my own radio show. It's called the Mr. Murfreesboro Show, believe it or not. And on WGNS.
Yeah.
And had that for like 3 years, and interviewed Grammy Award winners, professional athletes, all sorts of people, truck drivers, just everyday people to people who you see on TV.
Right.
Celebrities, politicians, which I didn't really care for too much. But anyway, that's how it got started. So I'm not the original Mr. Murfreesboro. Tommy Martin is the original Mr. Murfreesboro. I am Mr. Murfreesboro today, and trying to bring goodwill to people and tell people's story, much like you. There's nothing better than a good story, a storyteller, and that's something that we've lost.
So I consider myself, I've had folks, try to call me an historian. I tell them that I am a history enthusiast. I tell them that I'm not actually a real historian, that I am more of a history enthusiast. And I also tell them, I'll say something to the effect of the storyteller. I like to think if there's anything in terms of historian that goes with me, I'm a raconteur historian, a storyteller historian.
That's good.
And I see that with what you do to a great deal as well. Now, you get into some really interesting things, like with the wildcat that you
Muff the Mountain Lion.
Yes, Muff the Mountain Lion.
That was one of the first stories I did in the Murfreesboro Pulse like 3 years ago.
Okay.
I'll tell you a little bit about it. Muff the Mountain Lion it's a true story. My older brother, Mitch Wilson, one of his good friends was Billy Joe Adcock, who's no longer with us, God rest his soul. When I was about 5, 6, 7 years old, Billy Joe and Mitchell were friends, and Billy Joe had this pet mountain lion named Muff, the mountain lion. Well, Billy Joe lived in LeBeau Chateau Apartments over by the college at MTSU, and he had gone to work in Nashville, okay? And there was a heat and air guy that went in his apartment to check on the heat and air. Muff the mountain lion attacked this, the heat and air guy attacked him. And it was bad. I mean, it was like they were getting into, it was, I don't know if I would go in somewhere where there was I guess he didn't know there was a mountain lion.
Right.
Long story short, Billy Joe and Muff the Mountain Lion had to move, and the guy was going to sue him like for damages and stuff. But what happened is the guy that got hurt or attacked by this mountain lion, his grandkids found out about Muff the Mountain Lion, had been moved to a pen, and they somehow they got out to see Muff the Mountain Lion and became friends with Muff the Mountain Lion and dropped all, there was no more legalities because of
The grandkids getting
the
involved.
grandkids loving Muff the Mountain Lion. And that's a true story. And I don't know anybody else, in Murfreesboro that has a story. You're going into an apartment and it being attacked by
By
a mountain lion.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's...
And I used to take chickens and they throw it over and watch the mountain lion eat
oh, wow.
dead
Yeah.
chickens, already processed.
Right. I remember seeing, where I knew people who had snakes that would feed them mice.
Yeah.
Or even rats, and that was something. So let me pause just for a moment here and tell you we are in the Beechgrove Confederate Cemetery and Park in Beechgrove, Tennessee, and it is only about a quarter mile from the interstate, and there's a good bit of traffic. Of course, Tennessee 64 goes right by the base of the hill here where we are, so you're probably hearing a good bit of traffic noise in the background, and that's why. It's really hard in this part of the world to find a place that's really truly quiet without being indoors because of the interstate. It used to be a lot less busy than it is, but now, we could probably sit here in about 30 seconds and count, a couple hundred cars going by. It's quite busy nowadays on I-24. 24 has become a pretty significant artery between Chattanooga and Nashville. So you write for the newspaper. You were on WGNS, and of course you also fill in for a friend of yours because I was with
The round table.
doing the round table
On Monday mornings at 9, and you were nice enough to do that.
You were nice enough to invite me.
But you know something, going back to where we're at, we're really within a rock's throw of Coffee County, Bedford County, and we're in Rutherford.
We're in Coffee County right now.
And then Bedford County is right over here.
Bedford County is right at the
Rutherford
top
County,
of the next hill there.
And Rutherford County's right over there.
Yeah, Rutherford County is actually literally, I'll say half a mile that way.
But this is where we were talking earlier. This is my home away from home, and I've been in real estate for the last 26 years. And when I was a kid, Dr. Joe Tom Walker had a farm out here, and I was fortunate enough to get to help to work on that farm, and especially when they had chickens. And his son, Bill Walker, and I are like childhood friends. He's like a brother to me. And at one time, Dr. Walker owned several thousand acres out here. And if I wasn't out here, Bill was in Murfreesboro at my house. We were always like Tom Sawyer, Huck Finn.
Right.
So I got to learn about farming out here in Beechgrove.
Right.
And I've always been a history buff. I've always loved history. I don't know why, but I have. I've always loved to hear stories of how things used to be and how people get here, get there.
And I want to come back to that in a little bit, but yeah, don't want you to lose. I just want to let you know we're going to put a pin in that and come back to it. Continue with your story about the Walkers and.
Well, I would love, and being a realtor, Beechgrove is looking around, it's some of the prettiest part of Tennessee, and I really don't want people knowing about it because, the whole thing is the good Lord doesn't make any more land.
Right.
The good Lord does not make, other than a volcano in the middle of the ocean somewhere.
Right.
But these are the rolling hills of Tennessee, and there's a lot of history here. That the first repeating rifle, the Spencer repeating rifle, which Hoover's Gap. We're going to talk about.
We will come back to that. Yes, we will. And that is. So, the thing about Tennessee and I haven't spent a great deal of time on this yet. It is something that we will be spending a lot of time on. Matter of fact, I'll have several episodes if the Lord allows me to continue to do this show, and I can get some, the support I need to be able to do it long term. I want to do a lot of episodes on the Civil War, talk about the Battle of Murfreesboro / Stones River, the Battle of Shiloh, Chattanooga and Chickamauga, Campbell Station in Knoxville,
Hoover's Gap.
But then to talk about, you see, you're getting ahead of me there, to talk about the Tullahoma campaign, which includes Hoover's Gap, Liberty Gap, Shelbyville, just a host
going south.
Yeah, and it just has there's a whole host of much smaller battles that are part of that overarching campaign where, in my opinion, the ineptitude of Braxton Bragg was shown. Bragg was not an inept officer. He was an inept
leader.
He was an inept strategic level officer.
Right.
I think he was great as a lower level officer. Matter of fact, he proved his abilities in the war with Mexico as an artillery officer.
He did good there.
But in terms of being able to lead larger groups of men, I don't think he was as able. And just down the road here, we did have the skirmish at Hoover's Gap, which actually opened the gap up for the Union. It held that, Bragg sent people there to take the gap. Wilder and his men beat them to the gap.
Lightning Brigade.
They called them the Lightning Brigade because of how quickly they moved to get there. But the other thing is that they struck like lightning because they had something that the Confederates were not anticipating, had no knowledge of. They had Spencer repeating rifles. And that was one of the things, and you can correct me on any of this or jump in at any time, but one of the things the Confederates used to say was you could load it on Sunday and shoot it all week.
And shoot it all week, because it was, 7 rounds,
Seven rounds.
And instead of being like the old Minuteman, where you're sitting there loading, then you're getting a bullet right through your head.
Yeah,
you're mowing people down.
Yeah, it was self-contained cartridge,
but it was brought here by an individual from Pennsylvania.
Right.
I guess that is Spencer.
So
it changed warfare. The first modern history of warfare, the repeating rifle happened within a rock's distance of where we're sitting right now in warfare.
Yeah, that was the first time, to my knowledge, that it was ever used in combat. Was at Hoover's Gap, and that's the reason why the Confederates were so surprised by it. They had no way of anticipating, no way of knowing, and they were slaughtered.
It was all new to them.
It was new.
They're used to line up, fire. The old British way, the old way they used to do it was in a line.
They had what were called rifle muskets.
Exactly. Some 1840s. Maybe even older.
Yeah. So they were rifled. They had a little bit longer range than the old actual muskets, but they were not the Kentucky rifle. They were. Or Pennsylvania rifles, as they were called before that. It was, and certainly not like the Whitworth that was used by snipers or others of that time period. But the thing where we are is called the Confederate Cemetery. Now, it was here before the Civil War. I want to make that clear. There are graves here that predate that time by decades.
Yes.
It became known as the Confederate Cemetery. Why?
Well, because there were bodies. They were interned here. They were spread out. But they needed a place to go home as far as a central location. From my understanding, the bones. Like in Murfreesboro, my understanding is the bodies would. The Union, they
held the field.
Yeah, and they were buried properly. And if you're the Confederates, which, you lose the battle, You don't get to dictate history and all that stuff. But from my understanding, there were, I don't know how many people were killed up there, how many soldiers. There were several.
Folks, if you're looking for a great Tennessee getaway, let me tell you about Birdsong Resort, Marina, and Campground. Located on beautiful Kentucky Lake on the scenic Tennessee River, Birdsong is just 9 miles off Interstate 40 at exit 133, making it an easy drive halfway between Memphis and Nashville. The Keast family has proudly owned and operated Birdsong since 1961, and today the second generation of Keasts continues that tradition of excellent hospitality. Birdsong offers cabins, full-service RV sites, primitive tent camping, boat rentals, boat sales, fuel, bait, and a large concrete boat ramp for easy access to Kentucky Lake. While you're there, don't miss the Tennessee River Freshwater Pearl Museum, where you'll discover Tennessee's official state gem, the freshwater pearl, and learn how the freshwater pearl industry brought worldwide attention to this part of Tennessee. To start planning your getaway, visit birdsong.com or call 731-584-7880. That's birdsong.com or call 731-584-7880. Birdsong Resort, Marina, and Campground. I think you'll be glad you went. And when you call them, tell them Big John sent you.
That they didn't really have, they were scattered around. And this was an interment. It's a beautiful spot. And by looking at that map out there, this is probably part of, at one time, the battlefield was probably
Well, you
right
had
here.
you had
the canyon.
Yeah, you had the Beechgrove engagement too,
Right.
which would have taken place here, which was just
Skirmish.
yeah, it was, but it wasn't actually part of the it wasn't actually part of the Hoover's Gap engagement. This was right after that. And the interesting thing, if I'm remembering my history correctly, somebody may correct me on that. And if that's the case, I do stand corrected. I'm not gonna pretend to be an expert on that. But the interesting thing you were pointing out, when the battle was over, the Union held the field.
Right.
So what you had was a number of circumstances that were true. Number one, you had a group of people who held that the Confederates were traitors. Now, I will hear people debate that today and swear up and down, these men were absolutely traitors. I will say it's a lot more nuanced than that. I mean, did they rebel against the United States? They did.
They did.
But until the Civil War was fought, you had a group of people within the United States, many of whom lived in the North, who held that a state had the right to secede.
Right.
And, the war ended that simply from the standpoint of might makes right. Not because it settled it philosophically, it settled it by force of arms.
You're talking about states' rights.
States' rights, among certain, among other things. And so, as a result, the Union held the field when it was over. So there's the first thing. They held the field when it was over. Number two, they held that these men were traitors. They don't get an honorable burial.
No.
Based on Union rules of that time.
Right.
And then number three, the people who would have known who they were and would have had care for making sure that they got a proper burial aren't here. They've been forced from the field.
Right.
And so what you ended up having was the local people of the community who went and gathered up those bodies and gave them a proper burial here. But as you walk up and down the rows, you see that it says that they are unknown Confederate soldiers.
Right.
They are not known. They don't have.
There's no DNA. I mean,
there were no dog tags. There were no ID. And one of the things that people many times did was they would write stuff like on a piece of paper and put it in their uniform.
Put their names or.
So that if somebody found them, they could identify them. Sometimes that may have been illegible by the time they were blood-stained or wet, because, by the way, the Battle of Hoover's Gap and Liberty Gap happened in a horrible rainstorm.
Right. up and down these hills.
Right. So you have somewhere in the neighborhood, if I remember correctly, 70-ish men who are buried here.
Right. And there's soldiers from, I think, the Mexican War, maybe in 1812.
You definitely have a Revolutionary War
Yeah,
soldier.
Revolutionary War. So there's different ones, but it's known for the Confederate Cemetery.
Right.
But there are other soldiers
Right.
from different eras.
And another thing is, we're a stone's throw from where the old Fort Nash was on Garrison Fork.
That's right.
And so what that was a blockhouse type of fort that was authorized by William Blount, who was the territorial governor. This was before Tennessee even was a state.
Before it was a state, and before state Franklin, yeah.
It would have been roughly the same time as the state of Franklin,
Okay.
or actually in between, I think.
Right.
But you go just a few miles. I'm pointing that way. I guess that's counted to the south.
Correct.
Then you're getting to where Wartrace is.
Walking horse capital of the world, or one of the places. In
Well, it's the
Rutherford County.
birthplace of it.
Yeah,
It's the birthplace.
it was what was the stroker? It was something Jim.
Strolling Jim.
Strolling Jim.
Strolling Jim was the first winner, and the people that owned him owned the Walking Horse Hotel
In Wartrace. Right by the railroad tracks.
It was the old. I had it just for a second. I forgot the original name. The original name of the hotel. So that was where the first actual celebration was. It didn't move to Shelbyville until a few years later, but it started out at Wartrace. But what I was going to point out, it's called Wartrace because that's where the railroad, the old Nashville and Chattanooga Railroad, before it was even NC St. L, it was first Nashville, Chattanooga.
Then it grew.
And then it grew, but they crossed the old Warriors path that came up from down around Nickajack up into the north. Matter of fact, that would have been the path that the
Trail of Tears? No,
but it would have been the path that the Chickamauga Cherokees followed, that raided, that attacked Buchanan Station just outside of Nashville in 1792.
Wow.
And then I want to say 1794.
Bean Station's around there somewhere, right?
Bean Station is on up in, I want to say it's on up in like Sumner County.
Okay.
But James Robertson, his punitive raid against the Chickamauga went right back down that same path back to them.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of Native Americans.
There's a lot of
Black
Native
Fox right down the road.
Right. And
Chief Black Fox.
Right. So this area is rich in history, and that's where I wanted to come back to with regard to your page. I told you we were going to come back to that. So your Facebook page, I have to tell you, I'm constantly, when I'm looking at that stuff, going, I had no idea. You know, I'm looking at this stuff. Of course, I'm not from Murfreesboro. I'm not from Rutherford County. And there's a lot of stuff that disappeared before I ever got there in 1987 when I started to college at Middle Tennessee State.
Right.
But, you know, things I did know about, I knew about the Jean Faircloth house.
Douglas MacArthur's wife.
Which was Douglas MacArthur's wife.
And they had a parade.
And by the way, that, if I'm not mistaken, that house was the sister plantation to Oakland's.
Right. It was also a fraternity house at one time.
They
tore it down and built the Arnhart doctor's office building.
Which we absolutely needed in that exact spot.
And it's been torn, and now it's just a field there where the old hospital was.
Yeah, that's my point. We tore down all that history for something that lasted 20 years.
And people don't realize the history, this area. James K. Polk, not 7th president, he was our 11th. James K. Polk.
I think he was 11th. He was a few before Lincoln. He was after Jackson.
He married a gal from Murfreesboro, Sarah Childress. Her house is actually for sale in downtown Murfreesboro. It's built in the 1830s or 40s.
Well, you're a realtor. What are you?
I need to sell it, right? I was by there today. People don't know this, and I think I may have shared this with you. James K. Polk was a very short man.
Right.
5'4", 5'5". he stopped. That's right. He and Sarah got tired of James K. Polk, our president, coming into a big room full of dignitaries and their friends, and nobody recognized him.
Well, they couldn't see him. Everybody was taller than him.
Well, he was so short. But they would go to parties in Nashville, Columbia, where he lived or was from. And they came up with a song. Sarah came up with that song, and I think it's called "Hail to the Chief."
Hail to the Chief.
Dun 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 dun.
That's Hail to the Chief.
So that as a tie to Murfreesboro.
How about that?
No, I mean you didn't know that.
No, I didn't know that.
I stumped the Tennessee history nerd.
Well, so the Tennessee history nerd, number one, is not infallible, and number two, I'm not a historian. I am a history enthusiast. And another thing that people may or may not know is that Judy Garland, Dorothy, from Wizard of Oz, There's No Place Like Home. And by the way, let me tell you,
me on this?
he is actually clicking the heels of his hands together as though
There's
they were
no
the red.
place.
Yeah, as though they are the
actual red shoes.
The red shoes.
But her daddy was Frank Gum, and it's been told there was a lady, an author, who came down and spent the summer down here, and did a story on Judy Garland and her connection to the gun community.
Which is just right up the road from here.
And it used to be Gumm, and somehow they took the M away.
Right.
Kind of like the Jarnett Lane in Murfreesboro used to have an E on it, now it doesn't. Who knows why not? I mean, I don't know. But that's another thing, a lot of people, if you're moving, there's a lot of people moving to the area that aren't from Murfreesboro in the last 20 years, last 10 years. California, New York, Iowa.
It's doubled in size in the last, I'll say, 20 years.
And when I tell them that story, they're like, oh my Lord, I didn't know that. But she would stay summers here. I mean, that's her connection to Murfreesboro.
Right.
And Douglas MacArthur, after the Korean War, had told Jean, his wife, she was his second one.
Right.
And they had a son, little Douglas the Fourth. I mean, he was third or fourth. He was their child. Well, after the Korean War, MacArthur wanted to go into China.
Right.
And kind of
he wanted to expand the war.
And expand it, but Truman said, nope, come on, you're coming back.
Right.
But he had promised Jean to go and visit her hometown of Murfreesboro, Tennessee. It was 1950 or 51. The city got all dolled up for this grand parade of Douglas MacArthur and Jean Faircloth. And I've got pictures on the page of Douglas MacArthur at the courthouse in his it was a Rolls Royce convertible. And they're coming around, and they stopped. The car broke down in front of Central Christian Church at the corner of Manny, Maine. That's my old family church. And MacArthur was known to be kind of a hothead. And they say they couldn't get the car started. So they had people from each side. They pushed his car all the way down Main Street and took a left on what is now Middle Tennessee Boulevard into the university over there. A lot of people didn't know that, but his car did break down during the parade. But there was people. It was like it was like this celebrity was coming to town. They took a lot of initiative to,
Well, he was a celebrity.
Yeah, he was a celebrity, but whoever thought Douglas MacArthur would come to Murfreesboro?
Well, whoever thought he would marry a girl from Murfreesboro?
Exactly. Good point.
Some Tennessee stories really need to be seen as well as heard. For only 99 cents a month, you can come along with me through exclusive on-site videos and bonus content from across the volunteer state with a subscription to the Tennessee History Nerd Facebook page. Step inside the Ray County courtroom where the Scopes monkey trial unfolded. Walk the streets of Athens and see the places where the veterans returning from World War II fought to take back their town. And join me at historic sites, museums, courthouses, battlefields, and communities as I search for the stories that help shape Tennessee. Your subscription also helps to support the travel, research, and field work that make the Tennessee History Nerd possible. Visit the Tennessee History Nerd on Facebook, tap the subscribe button, and come explore Tennessee history with me. And now, let's get back to the story. So
she lived to be 101 or 2 at the Waldorf Astoria in New York City. That's where she
right
died.
and correct me if I'm wrong, an interesting story there was they gave her free accommodations for the rest of her life, never anticipating she was going to live
to be 101 or 2.
Right.
Yeah, true story.
So when we talk about the history of Rutherford County and of Murfreesboro and of the other municipalities around the county, because there are several. Matter of fact, interesting thing is that Murfreesboro wasn't even the original county seat.
No, it was Jefferson.
And
Jefferson Springs or Jefferson.
Jefferson. And
northern part of the county.
Right, and many people, they know and have traveled Jefferson Pike and probably never realized that it went to Jefferson.
Right.
And Jefferson today is a submerged ghost town.
Right. A lot of it's underwater.
It is under
They had a
Percy Priest Lake.
courthouse. They had a jail.
Right.
Originally, there's commemorate the 200th anniversary of the United States Declaration of Independence.
Right.
And when I was a child, I was 10 years old then, and my grandparents, the Rogers side, and Mayor Westbrooks and Allie Clark, his wife, were dear friends of mine. In fact, they taught me how to play rook as a small child. But he is responsible for doing that. Cannonsburg was actually the town seat or the county seat for like a day or so.
Mm-hmm.
But Cannonsburg is still there. I hope they leave it the way it is. But
and let me go ahead and say just for a moment why he is saying that is the creek that runs through the middle of Murfreesboro since the 1950s has been buried underneath
Towns Creek.
Right, and it's been buried underneath. They just had
Broad
culverts.
Street, under Broad.
Yeah, and so what they are in the process of doing now as part of a revitalization.
Yes, they're putting a park there.
Right, and they're in the process of opening that back up where it can be
used by all the
right.
citizens. It's going to have splash pads and all sorts of things.
And I know when I started at college down here, there was a Texaco station there, and that's where the KFC was.
Exactly.
And
well, that's your wetlands over there.
Right.
Your Discovery House, which used to be
the Coke bottling. You were talking about the other day the Discovery Center. The Discovery Center. I don't have any idea what you're talking about.
That's Murfree Springs.
Right. And so when I drove home, I decided, you know what, I'm going to, instead of going back out and hitting the interstate, I'm just going to take Broad Street down and take 41 all the way back down to Beechgrove and go home that way. And so I go right down and, there it is, the old Coca-Cola bottling plant. That's the Discovery Center now.
In my office, I have a fan of the page that gave me a clear glass. Do you remember the blocks of, you could drive by and you could see in, but you really couldn't see in because there were these brick glass blocks.
Yeah, the glass blocks.
I've got one of those in my office.
They're translucent. They
Yes.
are not opaque.
Right.
But they're also not transparent.
Right.
So
Murfreesboro also has the largest cedar bucket in the world, and it's at Cannonsburg.
Right.
This area was known for we're known for cedar glades, limestone.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, Murfreesboro was one of the biggest producers of cedar buckets. Now, what do you do with a cedar bucket? Use it for water, right? Gathering. That's, if you ever get a chance, go to Cannonsburg. The largest cedar bucket.
I've seen it.
Is right behind the little store,
mm-hmm.
right behind next door to where the tractors are.
Right. Well, so I'm going to tell a story on myself here, and hopefully the statute of limitations applies.
Depends on what it is.
Yeah. So my freshman year, 1987, my freshman year at Middle Tennessee State for homecoming, they had a scavenger hunt. And one of the things that you had to have for that scavenger hunt was a legitimate railroad tie. And I remembered that Cannonsburg used the railroad ties as parking abutments for you to pull into.
That's right.
And so we went over there and grabbed one of those and took it back and got it certified. Now, one of the things that I said was, I'm not taking it if we're stealing it or going to do something else with it.
I'm not going to jail.
Well, I'm taking it back when we're done. I'm only borrowing it. Now,
What year was this? You said
1987.
Okay, you're good.
So we didn't get it wasn't anything like getting caught getting it.
Right.
But taking it back after dark, pulling in
that
with the
would
headlights.
be terrible to get caught when you're
Returning it.
doing a good deed.
Right, but that was when the lights came on and somebody came out to investigate, and we got out of there before. I don't think they ever knew what happened, but I put it right back where I found it, everything. But
that's hilarious.
But yeah, I nearly got caught taking it back because I insisted. Because I wasn't going to, I refused to steal it.
You had a conscience.
Yes, but
not
enough.
Have it at 18 years old or however old you were then.
Well, not enough of a conscience to get permission, but.
And the center of Tennessee is over by the university.
So yeah, over on Lascassas Pike, old Lascassas. There's that. Yeah, the old Lascassas Pike. There's an obelisk there. And man, when I came through there, I can't believe how much that has changed. I mean, I didn't even recognize it. There was an old quick sack that was there.
It's gone.
It's gone.
It's a liquor store, believe it or not, next to the college.
Right, and then right next to that had been like an old Victorian house.
Yes, right there at the corner.
It was on the corner. It's gone. And then I noticed, is the borough even still there?
The borough just shut down. There was the campus pub, which is still open. There was the Blue Raider bookstore. Or it may be Phillips, but there's a bookstore there.
Phillips was inside the University Center.
Blue Raider. You know, when you're in college, I started in '84. There was 9,000 or 10,000 students there, and a semester may have been $400 or $500, not like 5,000 or 1 year's 10 grand, maybe 15 grand or whatever. But MTSU was a small university.
Well, the year that I started as a freshman, they had a record enrollment there of just over 11,000 students.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah, and one of the things that I remember from that time period, the last semester, this would have been early 90s, maybe 1990, but I think it was like 91, 92, the cost per hour, and it had gone up, was $52 a semester hour.
Wow. But you had to have elective, let's see, it was either 3 hours, you could get 3-hour classes, 2-hour classes, and then there was some that were like 1 hour. But you had to get your cards pulled.
Yeah, it was a punch card system.
And it went through a big computer, and they were orange, a peach color. If you didn't get your cards pulled, you didn't get your classes. Now they register online, put the credit card in,
and that started the online registration started just as I was leaving. But when I started there,
you had to take the ACT as well.
I did.
I didn't. It started the following year.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lord.
I didn't even take it my senior year. I passed it in my junior year on the first go around. I thought, you know what, I did well enough the first time. I'm not going to take a chance on
going down
the second time. Right?
Yeah, I remember. You couldn't just go to college. You had to get into it.
Yeah. So some other things that you've talked about over the time that we've known each other, and this goes back. I remember Colonel Bob Phillips, and I think Colonel Bob is still alive.
He is.
But he was one of my instructors when I was in the aerospace department at Middle Tennessee University. And one of the things that he talked about was that the original Nashville airport was out between Sky Harbor was out between Murfreesboro and Smyrna. You know exactly where it is.
Right across from Burleson Lane near Florence.
Okay.
And it predates Berry Field in Nashville. And I guess it was called the Nashville Airport, but it was a big to-do. Think about that. Aviation hadn't been around really commercially. That was the beginning in the 20s and 30s of commercial flights. Pan Am, DC-3s, DC-10s.
So my wife and I here back, it's been about 3 years ago, the EAA, the Experimental Aircraft Association, actually, they have these old aircraft that were formerly either warbirds or commercial aircraft that they kind of barnstorm around the country and give people rides on. And they went to the Tullahoma Airport and had a tin goose there. Do you know what I mean by tin goose?
Tin goose?
It's an old
Like
Ford
the spruce
Trimotor.
goose?
No, this predates the spruce goose. This goes back to the mid-1920s. It was a Ford Trimotor aircraft. And it had
20 horsepower, probably.
Oh, well, no, it had a lot more than that, but it had one row of seats on each side of the cabin. It was that small, and you actually had to step over the spar in the middle to get to the front part of it. And when they talk about the flight deck, in it really was a flight deck. You actually had to step up and get up into an elevated position to see to fly the aircraft if you were the pilot or co-pilot.
Never heard of that.
Yeah.
But going back to Sky Harbor, and I think I told you this, there was a Bowery Ball going on in 1929, 1930. It was a big to-do. Back in the day, they'd have these get-togethers, these socials. What better place to have it than a hangar at the airport, right?
Right.
And it was Mrs. Dill, and there was Mrs. Ezel. There was different ones, and they were raising money for a charity. And to get people there, they had an actress from Hollywood her name was Ruth Chatterton. And she was flying in for this event. Unfortunately, the plane crashed near Sky Harbor, and one of my fans, I've got this documented in a glass case of where it talks about the Bowery Ball. It's got an autograph of Ruth Chatterton. In the newspaper, it talks about this crash. It's actually got a piece of the airplane in it. But she was the guest to be there, Ruth Chatterton. You can Google Ruth Chatterton, and I think she liked to fly, but the plane crash, it didn't kill her or anybody, but I've got a piece of that plane, because back in those days, the planes, they weren't really a lot of metal. Sometimes they were like
It was a varnished
cardboard. I mean, it was like hard cardboard. I mean, it was
varnished fabric.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was trying to get to.
Yeah, they would stretch fabric over the frame and then varnish it. How many stories can one small barrier island possibly hold? Enough for an entire podcast, and we're just getting started. This is Big John Summers, and when I'm not traveling across Tennessee, I'm down south exploring Dauphin Island, Mobile Bay, and the Alabama Gulf Coast for our sister podcast, Dauphin Island Diaries. You'll hear stories about Fort Gaines, the island's ancient shell mounds, Sand Island Lighthouse, Alabama's artificial reefs, the Dauphin Island Sea Lab, and much more. You'll also hear full-length conversations with island personalities and subject matter experts who help bring these Gulf Coast stories to life. It's the same boots-on-the-ground storytelling you enjoy on the Tennessee History Nerd taken to Mobile Bay and the Gulf Coast. Just search for Dauphin Island Diaries and follow it in your favorite podcast app. And now, let's get back to the Tennessee story.
And during World War II, that was like a lot of scientists. They did a lot of stuff out there. I don't know exactly what, but I've got some aerial shots of Sky Harbor, and you can kind of see there was just for everybody that's listening, there used to be a boat plant there, and some of the buildings, I think, still of Sky Harbor are there. Some of the...
Oh, wow.
And I might be wrong with that. I need to check that, Tennessee History Nerd, but the... Sky Harbor was ahead of things, and people don't know this, and Colonel Phillips is a fine man. He was a retired lieutenant colonel, or maybe a colonel, but he flew helicopters.
Right.
He was in Vietnam, and his daughter Laura and I were She was my girlfriend for several years.
He was a
hoot.
character. Oh man!
And I think the world of Colonel Phillips.
I can remember, and I can't remember if he actually said this or if this was a joke said about him. But at that time you could smoke in class, and he was a smoker.
Oh yes, chain smoke.
And so he would have that cigarette in his hand and draw on that. Boys, I've got more flight time falling off bar stools than y'all got in cockpits.
And going back to aviation, MTSU had an airfield. It had a little airport right in the middle of where the art barn used to be. There's a runway, and I've got pictures of that. Was in the 1950s or 60s. Could you imagine having a plane in college, flying in for your exam?
Right. Well, as an aerospace student, I remember I didn't even have a car my first semester, but I was taking flight lessons, and I rode my bicycle from the campus out to Murfreesboro Airport.
Wow,
and
that's dedication.
Well, I mean, it's not all that far, but cutting across. And of course, it's nowadays
now it's
it would be
even worse. The campus is huge.
Yeah, well, it's not just that. I mean, in those days, Lebanon Highway was 2 lanes.
Yeah, and so was Highway 96. So was Church Street.
The hardest part was Northfield Boulevard for me.
Yeah.
Getting across Northfield Boulevard, because even then it was 4 lanes, and so I'd come off a side street there and go out on
Look
Northfield.
both ways.
You better watch one way until you get to the center. But nowadays it would be just about suicide.
Right.
To go out there, because it's crazy how busy it's gotten, and I remember watching it grow even then. I mean, it was growing crazy fast even in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, MTSU is now either the largest undergraduate school or second. We did pass UT Knoxville as the most undergraduate. I think we got to 26,000. UT Knoxville, we were ahead of them for a while, but I don't know if it's still like that or not.
I don't know either, but I do know that it's huge. I mean, it's 2 or 3 times what it was when I was there.
Right.
And places that I routinely went don't exist anymore. And that's the one thing I want to say, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. This is, and you're the one who turned me on to the Rutherford County Historical Society, of which my wife and I are now members.
Thanks for doing that, yeah.
Well, thank you for inviting us, and we are, we've got to try to make it back. The problem is they meet on Saturdays, and I'm usually someplace doing research on Saturdays.
Yeah.
So, but the thing I wanted you to speak to, one of the things I see a tremendous amount of, I'll say, issue in Rutherford County and Murfreesboro, because they're growing so fast and have been growing so fast for, I'll say, the last 30 years.
Yeah.
40 years. They are, I think, at times more inclined to favor progress over historic preservation at times where they should be preserving things.
I can't tell you how many buildings, houses, 100 years old or older, that have been torn down, and now there's townhomes.
Right.
The House of Mayors is one of them. There was supposed like 3 or 4 different mayors of Murfreesboro that lived there. It's new townhomes. But you're right. Why do people want to be in Murfreesboro? Well, being Mr. Murfreesboro, I think that's great. And being a realtor, that's good. You've got mobility. You have the interstate system, which we're reminded of right now.
Right.
You have 24, 65, and 40. Now think about that. To go to the East Coast or West Coast, 40 will do that for you.
Right.
To go to Canada or up north or to the Gulf Coast, 24 and 65.
Well, 65 certainly does. 24 will get you.
840 connects all that.
840 connects it, and you're half an hour from the intersection of all those in Nashville where you're talking about.
You take a pin, this is the chamber coming out. I mean, you take a pin and put it in the middle of Murfreesboro, and you go out 500 miles and make a circle. You're a day's drive to 75% of the U.S. population.
Right.
We have great schools, whether it's public schools, private schools, charter schools, home schools, places to worship, recreation. There's lakes. You've got sporting events. The Titans, even though they're not so good, but the Titans. You've got the Predators.
And so today's episode has been brought to you by
the Nashville Predators.
Been brought to you by the Tennessee Tourism Council and...
That's right, but people don't realize that we were a cow town.
Well,
when I was a kid growing up, I'm 60. When I was a kid growing up, there was maybe 25, 30,000. It was the size of Manchester or Tullahoma.
Manchester's growing crazy now.
Oh, yeah. For the first time, I've seen people move from the suburbs, or actually from the cities out, away from the city.
Well, and what's happening, I'll tell you, the little town that I was born in was Woodbury.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, back in the day, and you remember this, our license plates didn't have the counties listed on them. They had numbers at the beginning of your...
Number 80, Woodbury.
That was 81.
Okay.
81 was out of 95 counties. They were 81st.
About 4,500 people, the whole county.
Right, and at that time, Rutherford County was 8 out of 95.
We are. And then it was 11, and we were always going back and forth between Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
And now Rutherford County has more people than Hamilton County.
Is that right?
We've passed.
No kidding.
Yeah. This area is like the fourth or fifth most the growing in the United States. If you call U-Haul right now, get them on the phone and ask them where are the most people moving to in North America. It's Middle Tennessee.
Uh-huh.
A lot of that's Nashville, but a lot of it's, the cost of living here is a whole lot better than, say, California or people just, what I've seen in my real estate world and business, there were people that migrated from California. You had the Silicon Valley. They made millions. People rich off the computers and stuff. And if you were a satellite, if this was still the 1800s and everybody got around by wagons,
right,
there would be a trench of where the wagon wheels go from California
right
to Tennessee. You could probably...
Yeah, well, there are places, I'm told, still out west where you can find the wagon ruts from the old Oregon Trail.
But every family moved here 20 years ago, and they moved here because of the things we just discussed, and some of it may be politics. But here's the deal. The cost of living's better.
It was.
But it's going up now. But
and part of that is being driven by that because, you have people who are accustomed to spending, for a 1,000 square foot house, they're accustomed to spending $500,000 to $800,000. They come here and they can get it for
they pay cash.
And they can pay cash for $150,000. They got money in their pocket left over.
Right.
And
they knock the investors out.
Not just knock the investors out, they're also the people who would, maybe get into a bidding war on that to get it for, whatever. You're the real estate guy, but it would have been a whole lot less.
6 or 7 years ago, I was selling homes. People were bidding 150,000 more, not doing an inspection.
Than the asking price.
No appraisal. Yeah, I'd have 5 contracts, 5 offers, and it was a bidding war. You could think about putting your sign in the yard, sell your house, and you already had 4 offers. That's how it was. Seriously, it was. But people moved here from like California or different states, got situated here and loved it so much they told Cousin Eddie and all these other, and they followed suit.
Right.
And that's what's happened.
And the thing you have here is you don't have a state income tax.
Correct.
You don't have, what we do have, we have sales tax. But you go to California and there's a tax on everything.
Oh, yeah.
There's a tax on everything.
Oh.
And they have a phenomenal healthcare system. I'm not taking that away from them.
Right.
But what they've got in the way of those public resources, that comes at a price, and that price is the taxation.
Right.
And so that's where and I'll what you're seeing now is probably, I'll say, the reverse of 100 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
When you had the Dust Bowl and you had everybody was moving west to California for a new start.
Right.
And of course,
land was cheaper too.
Land was cheaper out there, and you had all the stuff going on with the industry and the going out there for the movie stars, and you had Mulholland that was absolutely destroying parts of one part of the state to get water to Los Angeles,
right?
So people could water their yards and keep it green in a desert, that kind of thing. And so you had a tremendous amount. I mean, so by the way, I'm going to go ahead and mention a book that talks about all of that. It also gets into the TVA some as well. So it's called Cadillac Desert.
Cadillac Desert.
Cadillac Desert. It is a fascinating book, study of the dam system and the water system, and how we've turned
out west, or is that TVA?
All the above.
TVA really hired people and brought us electricity. The people of East Tennessee
paid the price.
My great uncle Will Jill, of course, sat on the board for the TVA. He was good friends with Cordell Hull. They used to hunt together, and up in Sullivan's Bend in Smith County. But TVA was a blessing to a lot of people when they did dam up, produce electricity, created jobs. Yeah, TVA did wonders, right after, I guess, the Depression years.
Well, it was during the Depression years, actually. The first dam was Norris Dam in Anderson County, and it, I want to say, opened in 33.
Right.
33, 34, something like that. And that was what ended the whole the pearl boom in Clinton. That came to an end after that. And so that's part of the other thing that I would say, though. I mean, I would say that there are two sides. And I really try to be even-handed with things, because I agree with you. There are a lot of blessings that came out of TVA.
Yes.
There were a lot of people that paid the price.
Yep. There's a big thing going on in Murfreesboro now, eminent domain.
Yes.
They got a new jail going in, and where they're wanting to put it, here's a little caveat that's coming out in the Murfreesboro Pulse tomorrow. Where Crystals is on South Church Street, behind that was where the fairgrounds, going back to right after the Civil War. The Sandburn Bridge, it was a family, Sanders and the Burns, and they call that Sandburn Bridge, right behind Wendy's on Rutherford Boulevard. Mm-hmm. The train would stop there at Sandburn Bridge behind Wendy's off of South Church Street. The horses would unload there with the jockeys and trainers, and they would walk up Rutherford Boulevard, cross Church Street, and then turn back behind Crystals where the stables were. There was a grandstand for several thousand people, but that's where they had harness racing, they had horse racing, they had car racing. They had, at one time, the Tennessee State Fair was there in the 1870s, 1880s. And then they had shows and stuff, horse shows.
Right.
That is the land that the county is trying to buy. That's the eminent domain to put the new county jail.
Right. And that's all goes right back to what we were talking about earlier.
Exactly.
It goes right back to what we were talking about earlier. So, the eminent domain was, the TVA was, I think they abused it.
Yeah. It's wrong.
Well, there are certain situations that I say, eminent domain makes sense, but it's one of those situations where if you're in power, you say we have the right to do this, and we're going to take whatever you want, whether it makes sense or not.
Right.
And so, for example, one of the things that comes to mind for me that someone has talked to me about, and I can't speak to this. I'm bringing this up based on. Let me be very clear. I'm bringing this up based on somebody talking to me about it, but I have not researched it yet to know the full extent of things. But when they built Tellico Lake, which in my opinion never should have been built,
right,
because by 1979 it was no longer needed, and yet they built it anyway. But so Tellico Lake, they built it. They also, through eminent domain, took land that was then used for retirement property, retirement home.
It wasn't used for what they really...
Right, and so the people, you had people, you took the land away from them to put a retirement community there.
Well, the property out here on Church Street originally was used for entertainment. Now it's going to be used for detainment.
Right.
And that's in my story.
Right. Okay. So, anyway, we are really kind of at time at this point. I know you've got other things you've got to do, and I really appreciate your time this afternoon.
Man, I'm a big fan of the Tennessee History Nerd. You know that. And I'm excited. Thank you for letting me do this. I appreciate it so much.
Well, I appreciate you doing this, and we'll be, of course, putting this, and of course there's going to be, you're going to be, I'm sure, doing things with me again. I know I'll be doing things with you again.
Sure.
And really appreciate the time you've spent with me. There's a lot of places in Rutherford County we need to go visit and do some, if nothing else, do some short videos.
Some reels.
Yes. So
thank you, John.
Thank you so much, Mr. Murfreesboro, Bill Wilson, for being with us today in our interview for the Tennessee History Nerd. Really appreciate his time. We've talked a good bit about some of the things in the Rutherford County and Murfreesboro community, and man, there's a whole lot more to talk about. Of course, we bashed some folks a little bit, and I'm sure that I'll eventually hear about that a little bit. I stand by what I said, though. I really feel like at times some of the communities are spending a whole lot more of their attention on progress and not enough on historic preservation. Now, I realize you can't preserve everything, and there has to be a balance. But I feel like we've lost sight of some of the need for actual preservation along the way, and some pretty important sites have been lost forever. So, but that's going to do it for today. Really appreciate all of you who are listening, who are supporting the program, supporting the podcast, and hope that you've enjoyed this time I've had with Bill this afternoon. Feel free to drop me a line and let me know what you think. And guys, let me say this. If you're following us on Facebook, I do some special things out there for my subscribers. I encourage you to go out there and hit subscribe. It's 99 cents a month. That's all it costs. It's 99 cents a month. You can't even go to McDonald's now and get anything off of that. They don't even have a dollar menu anymore. So you can't even, you've still got one thing left that you can get for $1, and that's you can get a subscription to the Tennessee History Nerd for a month. And I encourage you to do that, and really appreciate everybody's support. Really appreciate your time this afternoon. Thanks so much, and have a marvelous day. As I listened back through this conversation, I was reminded of just how many stories Bill Wilson carries with him. My thanks again to Bill for sharing his memories, his knowledge of Rutherford County, and his passion for preserving the people and places that have helped shape Middle Tennessee. As you heard, we covered a tremendous amount of ground, from Civil War history to early aviation to MTSU, Murfreesboro's remarkable growth, and the continuing struggle to balance progress with historic preservation. And even after an hour, we barely scratched the surface. Bill and I have already talked about visiting more historic locations together, so I'm confident this won't be his last appearance on the Tennessee History Nerd. If you enjoyed this conversation, please follow the Tennessee History Nerd in your favorite podcast app and share this interview with someone who loves Murfreesboro, Rutherford County, or Tennessee history. You can also follow the Tennessee History Nerd on Facebook, where I share additional stories, photographs, and on-location videos. And for just 99 cents a month, Facebook subscribers receive exclusive videos and other bonus content while helping to support the work that goes into preserving and sharing these Tennessee stories. Until next time, I'm Big John Summers, the Tennessee History Nerd, and I am history. Tennessee history isn't found only in museums, courthouses, and archives. Sometimes it's preserved in a family story, an old photograph, or a memory that only you can share. If today's episode raised a question, brought back a memory, or reminded you of another Tennessee story that deserves to be told, I'd love to hear from you. Use the Send Fan Mail link in the episode description. Email me at john.summers@summersmediaenterprises.com or join the conversation on the Tennessee History Nerd Facebook page. And if you enjoyed this episode, help someone else discover it. Before you close your podcast app, share it with one person who loves Tennessee or wants to understand its history a little better. Your voice can help preserve Tennessee stories and introduce them to a new generation of listeners.